This true story takes place in the early 20th century. It went down in history as one of the worst child abuse cases in Canada. It is a story of denial and how the whole village would turn their back on a little girl who was slowly dying by the hands of her evil stepmother and brainwashed father, who loved his evil wife until the day she died. This is a story of how a father chose a woman over his own children. And this story repeats itself even in modern times. Even today, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, wife and husband is chosen first before the children. And more often than we even know, a child dies from this choice. In fact, I've discussed a lot of cases in the last few years where this was absolutely true. Hello, my name is Holly. Welcome to the Murder She Shed, the place we discuss rarely told true crime right from my little she shed. Although I'm not in my she shed today, it is icy today. The roads are slick and it is slick outside, and I don't want to bust my butt trying to get to the she shed. So I decided we will record right inside our house today. So I hope you don't mind. It's definitely cold outside and we're safer and better inside here. So that's what we chose, wasn't it? Anyway, before we begin, just make sure you smash that subscribe button, push that like button to help this informed nerdy girl out in this big YouTube world. First, let me apologize if I pronounced the French names wrong. As you can see, I don't speak French and I only speak the Southern Okie language. So this is very tricky for me, so I apologize. And also, I lost my companion somehow. Oh, he's back. That didn't take long. You're already back for more loving. Let's get right on into this story. Marie Aurore Lucienne Gagnon, simply known as Aurore Gagnon, was born on May 31st, 1909 in Forteville, Canada. The parents Telesphore Gagnon and his first wife, Marie Anne Caron, whom he was married to in September 1906. They lived in Forteville, a small village on the south shore of the St. Lawrence River, 62 miles southwest of Quebec City. They have 5 children together, and Aurore was the second child born into the family. Marie Jean was the oldest girl, who was actually 3 years older than Aurore. Aurore's birth was quickly followed by that of Lucienne, then Georges in 1910, and Joseph in 1915. Marianne Caron was a good mother who attended to her children's every needs. Aurore's father, Telesphore Gagnon, was known as an excellent farmer and even as a man who was handy in most trades. He was a blacksmith, a mason, a carpenter, and he never had to call upon other tradesmen to do any of his work on his buildings, as he was quite the handyman, the kind you want around. More than that, he would even take on stonework in the parish, and all that without neglecting his own farm work in any way. Through his work, he became the owner of a beautiful, gorgeous farm that was worth some $10,000, which was actually a considerable amount for that time period. He was a quiet man who would give out loans to everybody in need. Basically, a giving rich man that could be easily taken advantage of. And this caught the eye of a woman named Marie Anne Hood. Marie Anne Hood was the wife of his cousin, who was now a widow since his cousin had passed away. She had 2 children whom she was trying to provide for financially. She actually had more than that, but something mysteriously happened to some of them. She heard that Telesphore's wife had become sick and had been hospitalized due to tuberculosis. Marianne quickly moved in on this opportunity to possibly cash in. Cha-ching! She headed on over to Telesphore's farm and offered her services. She let him know that she was a widow now, and she knew how hard it was to raise children on your own. I understand you. She said while his wife was away, she'd be happy to help him on the farm and with his 5 gorgeous children. His children had actually been sent to live with his wife's mom or dad or their grandparents when their mom had been put into the hospital. And now that he was going to get help on the farm, well, he would just get them back. It would be great now. He had plenty of room in that big farmhouse, and he believed this was a great plan for his whole family. Marianne knew that his wife would never come back because back then tuberculosis was basically a death sentence. It didn't take her long to squeeze into Telesphore's bed, heart, and brain. She had him hook, line, and sinker. After the children were returned home, they only attended school for about a month before they were pulled out of school because Marie Ann said, well, she needed more help around the huge farm. About a year after Marie Ann had moved into the home, her youngest stepson, Joseph, was found dead in his bed. He was only 2 years old, but the coroner deemed it a natural death. Although some villagers did suspect that Mary Ann Hood might have had something to do with this child's death, nothing could be proven that it was true. Mary Ann had an alcoholic father and was abused as a child herself. She married her first husband when she was just 17 to get away from this abusive home. A year after Joseph passed away from this mysterious death, Marie Ann Caron died in an asylum from tuberculosis. Only days later, Marie Ann Hood became the new stepmom when she married Telesphore. Shortly after this, Marie Ann escalated the abuse on Aurore, who was just 8 years old when they got married. It is not known why she hated Aurore so much, because according to those around her, Aurore was a kind and obedient little girl. Perhaps she looked just a little too much like her mom, and this made Marie Ann despise her. Every chance she got, she would make Aurore appear to be a horrible child to her father. She would tell her father that Aurore would talk back, lie, and steal, when none of those things were even true. Aurore's older sister, Marie Jean, didn't get abused like Aurore was, because she had run away from home when she was big. This would cause outside attention on the family, and of course they didn't want that. Aurore, however, was more timid and just took the abuse. Marie Ann would not allow Aurore to use the chamber pot or allow her outside to use the bathroom, so she was forced to stool and urinate on her bed or the floor. Marie Ann told her father that Aurore was doing this for spite, so her dad would whip her with the switch he used on the horses. One time when Aurore was upstairs, her stepmom sent her to go and get the chamber pot, and stepmom forced Aurore to eat the contents. When she came downstairs to her father and the other children, they could see it on the corners of her mouth. Once when Telesphore's niece came to visit the family, Marie Ann told the niece, Aurore washes the dishes well when I beat her. She said, watch, I'll get her to wash the dishes. Marie Ann then took a cedar stick that was about 14 inches long and had a knot on it, like a tree knot. And while Aurore was in the process of doing the dishes, her stepmom would hit her knees and bottom with a knot on this stick. The niece said Aurore was crying, but her stepmom told her, the more you bawl, the more I'll give you. She told her to do the dishes faster. The niece also said that Marie Ann's 2 sons were playing horse one day. They put a rope around Aurore's neck. One was pulling her forward and the other one was pulling her backwards. The mother was laughing and calling Aurore names such as you little slut. Once a neighbor went over to visit Marie Ann when the neighbor's 2-year-old granddaughter decided she wanted to venture in the attic upstairs. The little girl came back down and asked her grandmother, wouldn't you like to see this little girl in the attic? Marie Ann said, I really don't like your granddaughter going upstairs. The neighbor decided she would actually like to see this little girl her granddaughter had found in the attic, so she headed upstairs. When Marie Ann began to tell her that her stepdaughter Aurore did have sores all over her body, but this was because she had a skin condition. When she got upstairs, the neighbor saw a very dirty room with straw and feces scattered all over the attic floor. This is when she saw the little girl laying in the floor with no blanket to cover with. The child's hands were all swollen. Her fingers were all crooked. She had reddish black blotches, swollen feet, and sores all over her little legs. Her feet, legs, feet were very swollen. Her face was also marked up with sores. There was a plate on a small piece of furniture near her with 2 potatoes on it. The neighbor said to Marie Ann that your daughter is in a very pitiful sight. She was going to die, and she needed to go see the doctor. Marie Ann said, I will telephone the doctor tomorrow and get some medicines and ointments for her skin condition. No rush. Marie Ann started putting feces from the chamber pot on her husband's Sunday clothes. Yes, she'd just grab feces out of the chamber pot, smear them on her husband's Sunday clothes, put them inside his hats, and pretend that it was Aurore who had done that. And then she made sure her husband knew just how filthy his little girl was. Stepmom would then make Aurore say in front of her father that she was the one that had done that. Telesphore would get so frustrated that he took an axe upstairs and beat Aurore with the handle. Marianne quit allowing Aurore to come to the dinner table with the rest of the family at some point and gave her very small amounts of food in the attic. Aurore's sister also slept in the attic, but she was allowed to have a bed, while Aurore was made to sleep in this cold floor near the draught of the window with no blanket to cover with. She told their father it was because the sisters were impure and wouldn't stop touching each other while they were in bed. Marianne would take the curling iron to little Aurore's hair and keep it in her hair until she could smell the hair burning. She would also rip large wads of hair out with this curling iron. Aurore had bald spots all over her head with burned areas because of this. Marianne's favorite game was bringing little Aurore downstairs, tying her feet to the kitchen table. She would then heat up a hot poker on the stove until the tip was bright red. She would burn Aurore repeatedly all over her body. Aurore's older sister was made to look out the window and make sure no one was coming. She would continue to burn this 10-year-old little girl until she could not handle the smell of burning flesh anymore. She's burning her. You could see the smoke coming off of this little girl's body. And they would burn until the smell, the singe of the skin was nauseating to them. One friend of Marianne said that she was told by Marianne that she would be really happy for Aurore to die without anyone finding out about it. Marianne got so mad at Aurore one day that she beat her repeatedly on her feet with a board. She got a big piece of splinter actually stuck inside one of her feet. The foot became so infected that this was the one time she was actually allowed to go to the hospital. But Aurore was made to tell the hospital staff that some neighborhood boys hit her with rocks on the feet. The justice of the peace came and visited Aurore while she was in this hospital and tried to get her to confess about what had really happened at home. But Aurore told him that a couple of little bully boys threw a big rock on her foot and on her leg, and then they took a big piece of wood and they pierced her side. Aurore was just too scared of her stepmom to even tell the truth. This is also the same reason that none of the other siblings told what was happening at the home. They were also fearful of their life. Aurore stayed at the hospital for more than a month because the infection was just so severe. After returning home, it was only a few days before her stepmom began torturing this little girl again. This time when she burned Aurore with the poker, she not only tied her up but put a gag in her mouth in case the neighbors might hear her scream. For 4 days, she was not allowed food for punishment because she was accused of stealing something from the church that her stepmom had actually stolen and put in little Aurore's coat pocket. Aurore was also whipped by her father again for this. Marianne began to put lye, like soap lye, on Aurore's food and make her eat it. Eating lye can cause severe burns to her gastrointestinal tract, so Aurore's stomach often would hurt. Aurore's aunt came over one evening and noticed Aurore had 2 black eyes. Stepmom said she had fallen against the stove. Marianne also told the aunt that she would be the happiest woman in the world if only her husband's children did not cause such discord in their home. A few days before Aurore passed away, stepmom hit her in the head with the poker. She was also beat with a hose. That evening before her death, Aurore had been in bed upstairs. She was only allowed to sleep in a bed 2 days before her death. Other than that, she'd been on the floor. She was very weak and her body was covered with sores and wounds. Since she was late in getting up, her stepmom went to get her, saying, "You won't stay in bed all day, you cow. You're going to get up." And she made her get up with a pitchfork handle. Aurore came downstairs barely able to hold herself up. She was so weak. Once downstairs, Marianne hit Aurore with the pitchfork handle, and Aurore collapsed on the ground. On February 12, 1920, a doctor was called to the Gagnon house. When the doctor and a couple of neighbors entered this attic, they noticed the smell. It was bad. It was dirty, very dirty, and in one corner there was a small bed with a little straw. This was her bed this time instead of the floor. Bloodstains were all over the floor, and on the bed, and on the wall. Next to Aurore's bed, there was blood spread about a couple of feet wide. There was blood on the bottom of the furniture and also on the floor, as if Aurore had dragged herself to try to get back to the bed. The doctor found Aurore in a coma. Her body had strange wounds all over them, 54 in all. The coroner's inquest revealed that she had succumbed to blood poisoning from the infection in her wounds all over her body and general exhaustion. The wounds were a result of several blows administered over time, he said. The most severe wound was located on the side of Aurore's skull. Her scalp was caked in dried blood and pus, and the skin was peeling off the skull, and her left thigh was swollen. The skin on her hands and wrists had been ripped off down to the bone. Aurore didn't survive the night. The wounds were just too severe. Some of the weapons were located all over the house. The children actually brought the weapons to the police that came that night. And here is some actual pictures of those weapons that was used on that little girl. Marie Ann and Telesphore were tried separately in Quebec City. Marie Ann was found guilty of murder and sentenced to hang on October 1st, 1920. Telesphore, who unlike his wife was deemed not deliberately to have sought his daughter's death, was guilty of manslaughter and given a life term in prison. Marie Ann apparently had become pregnant before she was arrested, and her twins were born in July. Then 2 days before she was hanged, her sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. One reason apparently they said it was because it was thought the twins would suffer if they were weaned prematurely. Behind bars, both killers were eventually to receive mercy, such as Aurore actually never enjoyed. In 1925, Telesphore was released because of throat cancer, said to be terminal. In fact, it proved not to be true, and in 1938 he married a third time and lived until 1961. In 1935, Marie Ann was also released because of breast cancer, but hers was actually real. She moved to the home of a sister-in-law in Montreal and died there the following May. Before Marie Ann passed away, her husband actually sent her a letter in prison. He still loved her. He still cared for her. And he wanted to get back with her after they were released.
Chère épouse, voilà 2 lettres que je t'envoie et j'ai toujours pas de réponse. Si j'ai pas de tes nouvelles, ce sera la dernière lettre que je t'écrirai. Il y a trop de travail ici pour un seul homme. J'ai besoin de ton aide. Je m'imagine toujours te voir arriver à la maison. Je pense que j'en perdrai la raison. Je crois fermement que la justice va te libérer. Tout le monde fait des erreurs. Moi le premier. Je prie bien fort pour toi. Je te quitte en t'embrassant bien fort, en attendant le vrai baiser sur tes petites lèvres pâles. Ton époux qui ne t'oublie pas. Te laisse fort.
All right, guys, I'm finished with this case. I'll tell you what, I had to dig through lots of French documents to figure out this case. Wasn't the easiest case to figure out since it's so old. There was a lot going on with it, but I did it because I actually had 2 requests for this case. So I went ahead and did it. Then, baby, we got her done. And here's Maxie. These are both my pups. Actually, I got another one. Buddy's behind the bed. He can't really walk. See him next time. I know. You're a beautiful baby. Your brother's not getting any loving over here, though. See what a big baby is? My 100-pound baby. This one's 120 pounds. This one's 100 pounds. And my one behind the couch is probably around 100 too. So I got some big babies. You know what he wants, don't y'all? If you watch the Murder She Said very much, you know what he wants. I know. You know what you want too, don't you? Listen. It's cold outside. It's cold outside. He wants the 4-wheeler. Yeah. He wants the 4-wheeler. Well, we'll see. Ready? We're freezing. Me and Max. We just want to go in and get on the couch. Simon, on the other hand, has other ideas. It's 15 degrees here. Pick it up, Simon. Ready? This is not fun, is it, Max? We just want to go in, don't we? Pick it up.